More experts are wrong about Boston College football in 2025.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. If you're looking for a podcast to get all your news, updates, recruiting news, and analysis, you are in the right place. We're a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On today's show, we're going to get into John Rothstein's starting five and where Boston College sits in his preseason ACC rankings. Steve Addazio was right. I'll explain why. And another group of media members are wrong about Boston College football. Let's dive into it. But before we do, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5 and it wins. So, Boston College football is in week number 2 now of practice. It's Friday. They're going to kick it off at Chamberlain Field. And I've been excited watching them practice because they're physical. They're looking good. But, it's preseason, so a lot of people have their takes on what Boston College football is going to look like. And I'm going to disagree with someone today. The boys over at Cover 3, part of the 247 Network, I love them. It's Danny Cannell, Bud Elliott, Tom Fornelli, and Chip Patterson. They had their over-unders on ACC win totals for this season. Now, BC... if you've read any publication, they're usually around where the Vegas line is, which is 5.5 wins. So they asked the 4 dudes who will be above it and who will be below it, and who will cover, who won't. 2 picked to cover, 2 did not. The 2 to cover are Danny Cannell and Tom Fornelli. Yay! They picked BC to win more than 5.5 games. That's good. And the 2 that did not was Chip Patterson and Bud Elliott. Bud, I love Bud. He's always tough on BC. He's a big recruiting numbers guy, and he's always tough on them. I don't agree with this. But there's going to have to be some things BC has to do. We've talked about the 5.5 wins before. But I'm looking at some games that are just absolutely must wins. And it all starts in September and August. You're gonna smoke Fordham. Like, I don't like to boost my own bubble here, but Fordham is not good. They're worse than Duquesne and BC. I mean, they made Thomas Castellanos look like John Elway last year. That's not going to happen. BC's going to smoke Fordham. But then you have these games with the potential, as I've said before, of going out of September undefeated. If you do that, you're going to win 5. You're going to easily win 5.5 games. If you don't, it's going to get a little harder. Michigan State on the road. The more that I sit on this matchup, the more I like it for Boston College. Okay? What was Aiden Childs' big issue last year? He threw 4 interceptions against BC, and he was going to throw more. What's BC's biggest strength that I've talked about from camp? Everydayers, you all know what I'm talking about. It's the secondary. They're going to be better than last year. That secondary is going to be better than last year against a quarterback who can't stop turning over the ball. I like that game. I think it's getting sneaky good for BC. And I'm not saying I'm not picking them to win it, but there's a very good, strong possibility to win that game. They play Stanford. Again, my take on Stanford is they're going to be bad. They're going to be really bad. And I know it's on the road. I know it's a 10 o'clock game, but they're really, really, really bad. Their entire roster is gone. They have no one left. So I look at that game and I say, BC's got to win it. I don't care what time kickoff is. Figure it out. Win that game. They get a bye week after that, which is huge because you're coming from, that would be a really short week because they're not going to get back until Monday probably, but now they get the bye, so that's good. And they host Cal. Cal, I've said too, I'm not as high on Cal, but it's a home game. You win those first games, and I feel strongly that it's a good possibility that you do. You are 4-0. You're now 1.5 games with UConn on your schedule from 5.5. You then play Pitt, and everyone seems to like Pitt again. I don't know why. Why do people like Pitt? What's up with this? But Pitt is a winnable game. You could go on the road and beat Pitt I know they'll probably have Holstein back, but he's also a turnover machine too. There's a good chance that if you play good football, and if they don't, all this goes out the window. But I from what I've seen, I think that's going to happen. There's a good chance that you exit September either 4-1 or 5-0. And if you do either of those, you're gonna hit that over so fast. Now, I hope you guys are not taking me for gambling advice, because that's not what I'm here for. I'm a Boston College football podcast host, and I like to talk about where I think a team is going, where it's going. The piece that I get why people are hesitant to pick them over the 5.5 is the difficulty of the schedule. I get that. Like, you're playing, and I've said this on the podcast every day, or you all know this too, that I'm not feeling confident against Notre Dame or Clemson. I don't feel like BC has a chance in either of those games. Those are 2 losses. It's always tough playing Louisville. There's something about that matchup that's always been tough for BC. That's 3 games. Georgia Tech is going to be a good running football team, but you get them in November, so that, I don't know, but that could be tough. I can see why. Those are 4 games right off the bat that are really hard. The media loves Syracuse all time for, I don't know, reasons. So that would be 5 right there. So that makes it harder. But I still look at what BC's doing. I still look at the development that they have going on, and I like what they're doing. I really do. Just as someone going to camp and watching the attention to detail, the professionalism of what they're doing, the way that they run practice, there's no wasted minutes. Like Bill O'Brien and Berge Nigerian, who helps him, I think, coordinate all of this, his chief of staff, they make this like an NFL camp. And shout out to Kevin Stone. He's been to Patriots camps. He goes, this is just like it. That is important because, I am sure that there's other staffs out there that run practices that are wasting sessions, that are wasting time. O'Brien does none of that. And he's going to get his guys ready. I see situational football out there. They know that, they're working on things like, what are we doing here on 2nd and 12? I saw them doing, as I said on the other episode, punting drills like they did, what was it, against the Broncos, that the Patriots had to take a safety so they could do the free kick and try to keep themselves in the game. They were doing that at practice. That's how, and this is college football here. They are getting themselves ready for everything. O'Brien said so in one of his team meeting videos. If you looked on BC Football on Twitter, he's talking about we're going to drill it into you so that when it gets on the field, you know what to do. And I think that piece, that's going to help with the development. And that's why these guys are getting better and better and better, because the coaching staff knows how to maximize what they have. And that right there is going to get them more than 5.5 wins. Sign it. AJ said it. You can yell at me at the end of the season if it's wrong, but that's why I think they're going to win more than 5.5. In a moment, I wasn't a big fan of him, but Steve Addazio was right on something. I'll explain what that was in just a moment. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Recently, if you're watching the Red Sox, they have been red hot. Maybe you want to continue to follow them with, the odds, either the, straight up wins, or I like the home run prop bets that they have there, because you hit one of those, that's a big juicy win, and they've been hitting them hard lately. So I've been loving FanDuel for watching with the Red Sox. It adds a little bit of spice to it. Like, it's a lot of fun when you're doing that, and you have a little something on it too. So whether I'm placing a same game parlay or watching a bet ride into the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. All you got to do is open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, and I want to shout out everyone who listens to Locked On Boston College first every morning. Whether you're doing dishes, preparing your breakfast and lunch in the morning, you got my dulcet tones going. I love each and every one of you. Thank you. And if you have not done so already, become a everydayer, someone who listens to the show every day. I will have you prepared with everything you need to know about Boston College football and everything going on in Boston College athletics here on Locked On BC. Now, Steve Addazio, if you have been a longtime listener of this podcast, you know I'm not a big Steve Addazio fan. I really did not like him as a coach here at BC, and I didn't think he did much for this team. He did some things right. The 2015 defense was insane. Andre Williams, Tyler Murphy, he did a few things right here and there. He did some nice hires, but I just didn't think he was the right fit for BC. And it was weird, I have to say. On Wednesday, I was on campus, and there's Steve Addazio standing in the Fish Fieldhouse as he's part of the ACC Media Roadshow there with Mark Richt and I forget her name. But they were all on campus talking about BC, and they had, Lewis Bond and Turbo Richard and Bill O'Brien on, all to talk about the future of Boston College football in the 225 season. And I listened to it, and some of the clips that have come out, I have to say, Steve Addazio was pretty right about what BC should be. Here's what he said about Bill O'Brien. He said, well, first off, they hired the right guy. Bill O'Brien is a Massachusetts guy, a Northeast guy, and he understands Boston College football. He's got toughness in him. He's got pedigree from the NFL. He's got head coaching experience. So I love Bill, and I love what he's trying to do here. He says, that's right. He's absolutely right there, right? Like that's all stuff we already have said here before. But Dad says the same thing, right? He didn't have a lot of those. He had the one big missing piece that I thought Addazio was missing there was the NFL piece. Everything else was pretty on point. Also, he says, I think he's going to bring back the edge in what you need here at Boston College. Big picture, I think he's developing a culture here that's going to be a real competitive team week in and week out. You're going to watch them grow fundamentally in year two. You're going to watch that toughness continue to grow in year two, and I think he's going to bring BC to new heights. Now, after you're done shaking from listening to Steve Addazio say a few of the phrases that used to drive me crazy with BC, and I believe he says throw game in another comment, which, oh, man, I do not need to hear that ever again. You get back to what he's saying, and this is, I think, what he's saying, too, is kind of what he was trying to bring, what Addazio tried to bring to BC. He just failed at it. But I think he thinks that Bill O'Brien, this toughness is going to make BC hard out. And that's exactly what O'Brien keeps preaching. Like, I think it was the most recent press conference, he's talking about how they don't want to make mistakes. They want to play as mistake-free football and force other teams to make bonehead mistakes and maximize off of them. And I think that's what you got to be. That's what this team needs to be. They be tough. They have to have a culture and be a hard out. And now, I wonder too. He didn't say it, but I wonder if there's a little small dig from Addazio at Jeff Hafley in there, because that was not what Jeff Hafley was. He did not really bring a culture here. He didn't really bring a hard-nosed edge to this team. And that's been very clear since Bill O'Brien has taken over. I don't think Jeff Hafley was the wrong coach. I think it was worth giving him a try. I just think he wasn't the best fit for BC at the moment where he was at. That's my takeaway. Like, he was good at team forming a team and having a little rah-rah moments and being a player's coach. I don't think BC needs that. I don't think that's what's going to benefit BC. Development, hard-nosed edge is what BC should always be. And credit to Addazio, he tried. He did. He wasn't good at it, but he tried. And Bill O'Brien is doing the exact same thing. Okay? I think O'Brien's style is very close to Addazio. I think his offensive style is not very close to Addazio, because Addazio, if you remember, he's a college-style coach. So you had gimmicky offenses like Tyler Murphy. I think Thomas Castellanos probably would have been more successful in Addazio's offense, honestly. But BC is pushing towards that NFL style. And that's what's going to hopefully maximize guys like Dylan Lonergan and Shaker Reisig. And I look at, what Addazio tried to do and mirror it. And again, it makes me kind of like, oh man, he isn't that far off from what O'Brien was. But that's very true. Like, that culture, the hard out, that was what Addazio always wanted to do. Now, Was there games where BC got their doors absolutely blown off? Hey, folks, if you're listening to this podcast, you remember exactly some of those games. I look at, gosh, Kansas. Ugh. There was games that they just were not there. I don't think you're going to get those as much with Bill O'Brien. I feel like last year you didn't get any of them. The Virginia Tech game, they were in that game. I go back to that Addazio game I'm talking about. Kansas, they were just toast from day one, from the first snap of that football game. So I think that's interesting to see. And I also want to give Steve Addazio credit here. I do not want to see him as a head coach ever again. What went on at Colorado State was gross. And he showed that he's not ready for that. He's a good announcer. Let's put the cards on the table. Just like Jeff Hafley's a good defensive coordinator right now, Steve Addazio is a good announcer. He does it well, and he sounds interesting. If you can get I can't get over my my stress from seeing him again and having to listen to him talk. But if you listen to what he says, he really wasn't that bad. He was actually pretty good. So I recommend, if you can find it, it's on the ACC Network YouTube page. You can check out his comments on BC. And hearing him talk to Turbo Richard and Lewis Bond. Lewis Bond is awesome. If you haven't listened to Lewis Bond talk, go find that out. That guy is the perfect representative for BC. He hits every marker you want. Excellent on the field. Totally loves being an athlete and student here. Pushes for BC. This guy is it. And it's so cool to see him do this, especially after 2 years ago when he was Tommy Castellanos' right-hand man. Remember those vlogs they made together? I always wondered how he felt about Castellanos leaving, but clearly he's all BC. That's great to see. Now, in our final segment, John Rothstein talks basketball, and he gives his ACC preview, and things are as dire as it sounds. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black here from Eagle Insider, and thank you all for making us your first listen every single day. And we do talk basketball here. I don't talk about it a ton because many of you have already tuned out from basketball. But when there's basketball things to talk about and takes to give, I'm here for it. So John Rothstein, the robot on Twitter that you know that always posts the same things over and over and over and over again, is a smart basketball guy, though. He is. And his gimmick of being this basketball robot is kind of funny. But he also, he does his analysis and he does his previews. On Tuesday this week, he released his ACC media previews for his website. And the part I love with John is John's connected, so he knows things, is he gives his starting five for BC. And many people have been asking, AJ, you going to get to practice? AJ, who's the starting five? Prices aren't open in the media right now. They're not. So I don't know. They'll invite guys. They'll invite national guys. So I'm sure Rothstein's probably seen it. But for everyone else, it's quiet. They usually have one day that they open it to the media, but it hasn't come yet. So Rothstein has his starting five. And I thought it was interesting that one name was left off this group. And so he gives you his starting five being Chase Forte, who will be your starting point guard. That's the transfer from South Dakota. Donald Hand, obviously your star, the guy that's going to score your points. He's got to be there. Jason Esamoda, the transfer from Baylor. Aiden Shaw of, where is he from? Missouri. And Bowden Kopke from Butler. So 3 of your transfers he projects to be starters. I said one guy left off. Actually, there were 2. I assumed, especially given what they pushed out on social media, that Fred Payne would be a starter this year. He was good last year. Every time he came off the bench, he provided energy and was really good. The piece with this is maybe he's going to be your 6th man. Maybe that is his role on this roster. I've always envisioned him to be a starter because I think he scores points. He looks good when he's out there. But maybe they just want to utilize him as your 6th guy so that when, a guy like Donald Hand has to sit or you need Chase Forte to sit, you have a guy that the drop-off won't be drastic. I could see that as a point. It's still going to drive me crazy when you want to make sure that he gets max minutes, but I could see his point. The second name that was missing is Jaden Hastings. I just assumed Jaden Hastings is going to be your starter. He was your starter for last year. I would be really surprised if what Rothstein tweeted, that they brought in a guy from Butler to bench Hastings, I think it's honestly, my take is, and maybe he knows things because he talks to Earl quite a bit. I would think it's the other way around. I think Hastings is going to be a starter, and that Kopke would be coming off your bench. But maybe things are just different, and that Kopke is more well-rounded. I mean, he could be much more efficient on offense. Well, I mean, because Hastings has his moments, like he's really flashy and can jump a lot. And the other piece too is Aiden Shaw is kind of a carbon copy of Jaden Hastings. So maybe you're going more towards you've got a guy that can do things differently as your center, and then you bring in Hastings off the bench. But it's interesting because you look at that starting lineup. Remember back at the end of the season when BC basketball made a big deal about 3 guys returning? It was Donald Hand. Remember him signing his NIL paperwork. It was Fred Payne and Jaden Hastings. They made that into like the big 3 thing, right? Well, 2 of those guys are coming off the bench, according to John Rothstein. So I thought that was really interesting. I look at that roster and that starting 5. At least it'll be an exciting team. Will they be good? Who knows? But there's a lot of excitement. You got Chase Forte out there, who is a very good point guard. Of any of the transfers they get, he's like the most polished guy that they have. You know what you're going to get with him. Like he can play. He's very good at defense. He's going to be a ball distributor. That's something you really lacked last year. So having him in your starting 5, A, is a no-brainer, and B, should make your team a little bit better. You add in Jason Asamoah, who we don't know much about right now, but he was a 5-star recruit from Lynn, Massachusetts. Love to see what he's going to be able to do. He's going to be exciting. Same thing with Aiden Shaw. Aiden Shaw is going to be good for at least a couple of wow moments every single game. So that 5, and then you add a Hand who can score 20, 25 points every single game. BC on paper should be better and a little bit more, very much more exciting than they were last year. Will they win a lot of games? Looking at that out-of-conference schedule, they better, because that out-of-conference schedule is garbage. But when they get to the ACC, will it be tough? It may be tough. It may be. Will this be Earl Grant's swan song? If they can't get it together, I would say yes. But this group, at least we'll have people tuning in, because I think there's a lot of excitement. Exciting players. And it may take a little while. I'm assuming the first few games, whether it's Citadel or whatever, Alumni Stadium will be Alumni Morgue. But I think later on it'll be better. Now, I asked you a trivia question, and I want to shout out, because I'm learning how to do this trivia thing on this podcast. I want to shout out Oliver Lee, who got Wednesday's trivia question correct. He was the only one, but he put it in after I recorded. So that was Keith Barnett. Yesterday I asked you, when was the last time Boston College football had a winning record in conference? That means, and I want to make sure this was clear, and I apologize if you didn't understand my question. They had to have a record higher than 4-4. They needed to be 5-3. That was 2007. 18 years ago was the last time. And we had at least, pause for a second, because I thought I had the right date. It was actually 2009. And Dennis Monahan is our winner. He is the only one that I saw in our comment section. You guys could get on this. Our daily trivia. You need to get into the YouTube comment section. Don't tweet me, because I'm not going to respond to them. Put it in the YouTube comment section. Find Locked On there. And tell me who the answer to the trivia. So Friday, this is Friday's show. You have 3 days to get this answer correct. I know you can do it. Who is Boston College's all-time leader in receiving touchdowns? All-time leader in receiving touchdowns for BC football. Put them in the comment section. I will shout you out just like I did with Dennis on Monday's show. Thank you all for following. You can follow along with me on Twitter at AJBlack247. You can check me out on YouTube, on Spotify, every podcast app that you have, we're available. You can also find me on Threads, Blue Sky. I'm everywhere. Just look for AJ, Eagle Insider, or Locked On BC. And shout out to all the people from TikTok that are starting to follow along. We've got some new listeners from there. You can follow me there at Locked On BC if you're young and you like that TikTok. Thank you all, and I'll see you again on Monday when there's going to be, I believe, a scrimmage this weekend. I'll have full recap of all that on Monday's show, so check that out. And I'll see you again for Locked On Boston College, your team every day.